Jaya Raja Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Prabhupada Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhgavatam ki Jai. Jai Gaura Premanande. Shikodanitaya Maya Purushashi ki Jai. Thank you. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter entitled, Please Distribute Books. This is after Prabhupada's letter after he appreciating the first Christmas marathon that happened in 1972, December 22nd to 24th. The same day, Prabhupada dictated a letter to Karandar. I could never have thought it was possible to distribute so many of our literatures. Therefore, I can understand it is simply Krishna's blessing. I can understand it is simply Krishna's blessing us for your sincerely working on his behalf. Actually, that is the secret of my success. Not that personally I have done anything wonderful, but that because those who are helping me are sincere. They have done the work. That is the reason for our success all over the world, where others have failed. A little sincerity is a very difficult thing in this age of hypocrisy and bluff. But I am so fortunate that Krishna has sent me all of you nice boys and girls who are sincerely working. Please convey to all of them my deepest appreciation. Srila Prabhupada's letters acknowledging the Christmas marathon and assuring the devotees that they would go back to Godhead sent the book distribution movement flying into the new year with great momentum. Devotees continue to find new ways and places to distribute books. New records were constantly topping the old, and the devotees were making still higher projections for the future. Rameshwar published in his February 1973 newsletter a letter from a college student who had read one of Srila Prabhupada's books. ISKCON's mail order office was receiving hundreds of such letters a month. Sir, a couple of weeks ago, devotees of Krishna from Denver, I understand, were here at the University of Arkansas distributing literature. One young man approached me with a hard pitch for my purchasing a copy of the Prabhupada translation of the Bhagavad Gita. I was initially quite skeptical. So many people are getting rich from selling their versions of the answer, and told him to not bother me. He insisted though, and I finally gave in. I have been reading the Gita, having not read it yet, and I have found it quite rewarding. My mind, shaped in logic and empiricism, seems to find itself barely tasting the transcendental material in the book. I discuss it with others. I find myself remembering certain passages. It has genuinely stimulated my interest, to say the least, in a way that my quite extensive readings in Christianity, Zen Buddhism, the lower forms of yoga, etc., have never succeeded in doing. In short, I think I have finally found the beginning. Rameshwar went on to beat the drum of Sankirtan. Actually, no one can properly measure the effect of our book distribution. If it was known how many books we distribute each month, we would be listed on every bestseller list in the country. For example, as many of you know already, the new Gita has outsold any other edition of the Gita ever printed. The Macmillan Company has already sold tens of thousands of copies, while we have sold over 27,000 copies ourselves since they first appeared last August. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai,
Jai.
Transcendental Book Distribution ki
Jai.
Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Leading from Grantaraj, Srimad Bhgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter. We're finishing Chapter 2 today and start Chapter 3. The last verse doesn't have purport of Chapter 2. So let's do the translations. After the departure of their father, the 9 brothers married the 9 daughters of Meru, named Meru Devi. Pratirupa, Ugra, Dam, Shtri, Lata, Ramya, Shyama, Nari, Badra, and Deva Viti. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Agnidra. Chapter 3. Rishabhadev's appearance in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabi. In this chapter, the spotless character of King Nabi, the oldest son of Agnidra, is described. Wanting to have sons, Maharaj Nabi underwent severe austerities and penances. He performed many sacrifices along with his wife and worshipped Lord Vishnu, master of all sacrifices. Being very kind to his devotees, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was very pleased with the austerities of Maharaj Nabi. He personally appeared before the king in his four-handed feature, and the priests who were performing the sacrifices began to offer their prayers unto him. They prayed for a son like the Lord, and Lord Vishnu agreed to take birth in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabi, and incarnate as King Rishabhadev. Text 1. Shishuka uvacha nabir apatyakamo prajaya merudevya bhagavantam yagyaparusham avahitat maya jata. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak. Maharaj Nabi, the son of Agnidra, wished to have sons, and therefore he attentively began to offer prayers and worship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Maharaj Nabi's wife Meru Devi, who had not given birth to any children at that time, also worshipped Lord Vishnu along with her husband. So this is today's last text 2. I think I just do it myself because it's one of those prose type of verses. Tasyaha vava shradaya vishuddha bhavena yachata pravargyeshu pracharatsu dravya disha kala mantrartvik dakshina vidana yogopapatya duradigamo pi bhagavan bhagavata vatsalyataya supratika atmanam aparajitam nija janabhipretata vidiscaya grihita vidayo hridayangamam manonayana avishchakara. Looks like a longest word in Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm not sure whether you should go through word for word or not. What do you think? Tasya, when he, Nabi, ha, bhava, certainly, Shradaya, with great faith and devotion, Vishuddha bhavana, with a pure, uncontaminated mind, Yajata was worshipping, Pravargyashu, while the fruitive activities called Pravargya, Pracharatsu were being performed. Dravya, the ingredients. Desha, place. Kala, time. Mantra, hymns. Ritvik, priests conducting the ceremony. Dakshina, gifts to the priests. Vidana, regulative principles. Yoga, and of the means. Upapatya, by the performance. Duradigamaha, not obtainable. Api, although Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavata Vatsalyataya, because of his being very affectionate to his devotee. Supratika, possessing a very beautiful form. Atmanam, himself. Aparajitam, not to be conquered by anyone. Nija Jana, of his devotee. Abhipreta Artha, the desire. Viditsaya, to fulfill. Grihita Hridaya, his heart being attracted. Hridayangamam, captivating. Mana Nayana Anandana, pleasing to the mind and eyes. Abhayava, by the limbs. Abhiramam, beautiful. Avishchakara, manifested. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1. By sacrificing valuable things or eatables. 2. By acting in terms of place. 3. By acting in terms of time. 4. By offering hymns. 5. By going through the priest. 6. By offering gifts to the priests. And 7. By observing the regulative principles. However, One cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through this paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord is affectionate to his devotee. Therefore, when Maharaj Nabi, who was a devotee, worshipped and offered prayers to the Lord with great faith and devotion, and with a pure, uncontaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna in the line of pravargya, the kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to his affection for his devotees, appeared before King Nabi in his unconquerable and captivating form with four hands. In this way, to fulfill the desire of his devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested himself in his beautiful body before his devotee. This body pleases the mind and eyes of the devotees. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatato gyatva vishate tat anantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as He is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Bhagavad Gita 18:55. One can understand and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the process of devotional service and not in any other way. Although Maharaj Nabi performed prescribed duties and sacrifices, it should still be considered that the Lord appeared before him not due to his sacrifices, but because of his devotional service. It was for this reason that the Lord agreed to appear before him in his beautiful bodily features. As stated in Brahma Samhita 530, the Supreme Lord in his original nature is very beautiful. Venum kvanantamaravinda dalaya taksham barhavatam samasita buddha sundarangam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, although blackish, is very, very beautiful. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Sajjivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Govingi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Bhavati Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam. By the mercy of spiritual master, blind man can see the stars, lame man can cross the mountains, and dumb man can speak eloquently. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Raghunath Swami Nityananda. Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. The translation again. In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1. By sacrificing valuable things or eatables. 2. By acting in terms of place. 3. By acting in terms of time. 4. By offering hymns. 5. By going through the priest. 6. By offering gifts to the priests. And 7. By observing the regulative principles. However, one cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through this paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord is affectionate to his devotee. Therefore, when Maharaj Nabi, who was a devotee, worshipped and offered prayers to the Lord with great faith and devotion, and with a pure, uncontaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna in the line of pravargya, the kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to his affection for his devotees, appeared before King Nabi in his unconquerable and captivating form with 4 hands. In this way, to fulfill the desire of his devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested himself in his beautiful body before his devotee. This body pleases the mind and eyes of the devotees. Starting this new chapter, this is a similar principle that is being established by Maharaj Nabi. Agnidra also did a similar thing, and many other devotees throughout Srimad Bhgavatam. Before they bring out progeny, they perform sacrifice to uplift and purify their consciousness. It is such a significant principle. Even Daksha, who was, kind of quite a mixed devotee, and he again and again sent his sons for performing sacrifice and austerity before entering family life and before having offspring. Even even I think in 1 or in 2 lifetimes, every time, whenever he sent his sons, or not every time, but few times, whenever he sent his sons for performing yagya, some of them, by performing that sacrifice, their Krishna consciousness fully awakened, that they even decided not to enter family life. And that was Narada Muni's kind of mercy. Still, whenever he had another batch of sons, again he sent them to perform sacrifice. So this is such a significant point, and it's completely opposite of what is modern idea, when Prabhupada would call that bringing progeny as cats and dogs. Maybe it sounds a little bit kind of heavy in a modern day, but in comparison with the consciousness that is being established here, that before bringing out the offspring, one performs sacrifice, austerity. So one has this purified, uncontaminated mind. So then when there is a conception, then it brings about the generation, the offspring that is going to make uplift the world. It will benefit the parents, it will benefit the community, and it uplift the entire world, because the soul that comes is elevated and pure. And this is Maharaj Nabi's example. And also it is again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam, the same principle is very much emphasized. So this necessity of performing sacrifice, and in a Vedic system, it was, going through brahmacharya, and we have, now it's also brahmacharini, is going through that purification, upliftment, establishing that firmly the transcendental knowledge, understanding what is the life's goal is all about, establish firmly on that goal, and purifying one's existence, so that benefit person individually, and that will benefit, community, society, and everybody else. So that's a very important principle, and Maharaj Nabi performed it himself as well. But a very, very important principle that is not just sufficient to perform this austerity and sacrifice as some sort of external ritual that is being here very much discouraged. Of course, it's necessary to perform that sacrifice, and it's necessary to perform whatever is the prescribed method for self-realization. Like in this age, is chanting the holy names of the Lord, and we do so many other activities. We do some, of course, deity worship as well. That is recommended to purify one's existence. However, most importantly and essentially, and that's what Prabhupada as well, he even translates saying that he was performing that yagya, what is the words he used? I'm looking now. Superficially. Yeah, superficially performing yagya. So he understood the principle. It's not that, of course, he was neglecting the ingredients of yagya, but Prabhupada uses this word superficially in the sense that it wasn't the essence of the sacrifice, yagya, all the different types of ingredients and whatever it was performed, but the essence was the devotion. That's why Prabhupada uses this word superficially, that to educate us that ingredient, most important ingredient of the sacrifice, yagya, is not the form, but the substance. The form is important. Is not that we neglect the form. There's a various recommendations, and in a deity worship, and also there is a various types of things that we do in japa, etc. In terms of pronunciation and posture, in terms of focusing the mind and bringing the mind back whenever the mind wanders, while performing the Sankirtan Yagya, and in terms of japa and in terms of kirtan, we use various types of instruments, etc., accompanying it, mridanga, karatals, harmonium, etc. So we use all those things, but that's not a most important aspect of it. The most important aspect is devotion to the Supreme Lord, and cultivating and this purified, uncontaminated mind, which means that we become free, we cultivate freedom from motivation, from personal motivation, in terms of many, many different ways, profit, adoration, distinction, just to mention some that can manifest, when we're trying to perform Sankirtan Yagya, because we may do all the ingredients very nicely, and it externally may look as a very nicely performed show of devotion, but there may be, some motivation for profit, for distinction, adoration, puja, worship, etc. So you have to cultivate freedom. Of course, they may not be immediately be able to have that motivation and consciousness, but we are understand that this pride that comes, desire for honor. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he compared it to the bucket of stool, or not even a human stool, but boar stool, like a wild pig. So it's considered there is no worse type of stool, because the boar eats stool already, and whatever comes out is a stool of the stool. Sorry for using this graphic language, but that's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati used it. So is the stool of the stool is like the lowest type of stool is that pride, that comes when we're trying to worship the Lord, and that motivation just pollutes everything. Just like Vasudev, uh, was it Vasudev, that the leper Brahmana, what was his name? Vasudev, that he had this very rotten body. It was diseased with leprosy and full of worms, etc. And Lord Chaitanya embraced him, and he became completely purified and very beautiful and effulgent, and also becoming famous. And the Lord as well is known as Vasudeva Amrita Prada, one who gave the nectar to Vasudeva leper, and that his body became totally transformed and purified. And then Vasudeva actually wasn't so happy when he became cured, and he wasn't like that so happy. In one sense, he was saying, how am I gonna be able to chant the holy name? Until now, I was considering myself lower than the worm. Whenever the worms were falling out of his body, I was picking them up and putting them back into the body, thinking, this worm is more important than me. Why he should be deprived of food, and who I am, is this little insignificant soul in the body. So he's picking up a worm and putting it back, and now he's saying, I got completely cured, and I become proud now, and whenever I offer this service to you with pride, then that is not so pleasing to you anymore. So what I should do? And Lord Chaitanya, he gave a solution, is to always chant the holy name and share the holy name with others, and then this pride will not enter your heart. By Kirtaniya Sada Hari. So this is very important lesson for us, and so we should never forget the background that we came from. How there is this deity in Vrindavan where one hand of Lord Chaitanya is kind of down and another hand is up. So is indicating that he's picking up the lowest and elevating them to the highest. And it is such a massive contrast. This Lord Chaitanya's mercy is so wonderful that he is actually giving Vraj Bhakti, pure devotional service in Goloka Vrindavan, to the most unqualified. Even in previous ages, when people were much more qualified, that Vraj Bhakti, it wasn't available. Mainly it was destination Vaikuntha. But now it shows the unlimited extent of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, who came in this most magnificent incarnation that is given opportunity to the most unqualified, is given opportunity to enter Goloka Vrindavan in the most wonderful constitutional positions, which are so pleasing to Krishna, that is free from this Aishwarya. So this is the greatest gift there is. Do you have a comment? So this is such a wonderful gift. So we have to be very, very, very vigilant, to be humble and not to become puffed up. Because in this Kali Yuga, even a pauper is proud of his penny. Every little thing, we may be able to do, play mridanga nicely or sing nicely. Of course, I'm just preaching all these things to myself. I'm like far away from standard, humility is completely opposite. Because we have to speak about it. By speaking about it, then we can remember, and by remembering, we able to practice it, try to apply it in our lives. So even, whatever little small thing we may have, some sort of ability that ultimately is coming from Krishna, we can become like a proud of it, and like a good at singing or whatever the case may be, cooking, book distribution, fundraising, any so many things, every little or small thing we do is significant. Krishna appreciates every little service we do, is grateful. But at the same time, if you become puffed up, then that spoils the offering. So you can see, there's various ingredients of offering, and even those ingredients are very nicely arranged. When that mood of devotion gets lost through some personal motivation, whatever the case may be, pride or desire from fruitive mentality or some liberation, all the various jnana karmadi and navritam, the pure devotional service has to be freed from these things. Then it kind of spoils the offering. That is a very, again, graphic pastime of Lord Chaitanya, where it was, trying to remember which devotee it was, that he's basically was, maybe Javatwasi will remember, when I think it was Murari Gupta, maybe. Basically, the devotee was preaching, I believe, some mixed, some sort of mixed devotional service. It wasn't pure, so I can't remember exact circumstances. So anyway, the devotee was taking lunch, and Lord Chaitanya came and passed urine in the food, and the devotee was very, very upset. What you doing? This is such an offense. You just pass urine in the food. And Lord Chaitanya was still a small boy, and they were saying, this is how you're spoiling the pure devotion service with this mixed, karma and jnana. Do you remember which devotee it was? Really, never heard this. Raghunath Swami tells this pastime, that you are spoiling the devotional offering, with the urine of your, fruitive mentality and jnana and desire for liberation. So, of course, Lord Chaitanya's standard is very strict, but we should take this lesson, that we should aim to become free from that karma, jnana, mentality. And Prabhupada gave us Krishna book so mercifully. His Nimitika Lila is there. For example, in Lord Brahma's Brahma Vimohana Lila, the benefits of reading, of course, he's not a demon, but the mentality was there. That one by studying this pastime, Brahma Vimohana Lila, and Brahma steals the cowherd boys, and just to kind of test, his own prowess and test that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, because he was in association of devotees and he was breaking the regulative principle of not touching food with his left hand. He had this yogurt, sweet in his left hand, and he was eating it. And demigods and Lord Brahma saw, that his God is breaking all the regulative principles of the respecting prasadam, eating the prasadam with his left hand. And the devotees, the cowherd boys as well, they were eating and biting a little bit of prasadam and the remnants putting in a Krishna's mouth, again breaking all the regulative principles of honoring prasadam properly, according to regulative principles. But they were biting a bit and putting the remnants in Krishna's mouth, and Krishna was relishing it, and at the same time he was holding the sweet in his left hand, so breaking all those principles. And if what how this can be the Supreme Lord, so he stolen the cowherd boys and stolen the cows and etc. for one moment in his estimation. And then Krishna manifested, all expanded himself in exactly the same cowherd boys and the cows and etc. And also confidentially fulfilled the desire of Brijbasis, who were really appreciating Yashoda's good fortune that she could, breastfeed Krishna and serve him in this most intimate ways. They were in envious of Mother Yashoda, but they was appreciating the good fortune. So the same as, we should be appreciating the good fortune of any devotee who is receiving the mercy of Krishna. And by that appreciation, then Krishna is very, very pleased, practically in the same way as we have done it, the service, if we appreciate our devotee. So what happened there, then all those devotees, Krishna expanded in so many cowherd boys and the cows. So the cows were given opportunity, to the cows who expanded as Krishna were taking the milk from the cows. So the cows could serve Krishna in that wonderful way, giving the milk to Krishna. Um, and then the cows were feeding the expansions of Krishna. Actually, it was calves. Sorry, so the cows wasn't expansions. The calves were expansions. So the cows were taking the milk from the cows. So in that way, serving Krishna in that intimate way. And the mothers, various gopis of Vrindavan were serving Krishna in this very intimate way, in various, breastfeeding him, bathing him, dressing him in this wonderful, wonderful way. And their love expanded. The love they were feeling for Krishna expanded exactly in the same way for their children. Uh, so this wonderful pastime is there, and the benefit of listening to this pastime is that one's appreciation for Madhurya, aspect of Krishna's pastimes increases, and that Aishwarya, one understands that Madhurya is superior to Aishwarya, which is the ultimate goal. As one becomes very, very purified and free from material contamination, then one slowly is um, uh, becomes elevated towards that platform of Madhurya, transitioning from Aishwarya. And also one becomes free from this karma and jnana inclination, as well, from this fruitive mentality and for desire for liberation. That's another benediction of this pastime, listening and studying this pastime of Brahma Vimohana Lila. So there's much more in that pastime, so we just touched a little bit of it. So this pure devotion is so important for us, and we should remember in everything what we do is, you're performing Sankirtan Yagya, and so many activities are involved in performing Sankirtan Yagya in terms of supporting it and accompanying it, and various, anything, even gardening is a Sankirtan Yagya if it's done in the right consciousness. And those ingredients of Yagya are important, but it is most important, or more important, is the consciousness which we perform the yagya. And therefore the hearing and chanting in our life is so significant for a devotee, because then it elevates the consciousness. So then when we do the activity, we do it in the right consciousness that is pleasing to Krishna. And if your consciousness is not purified, then the yagya, the essential ingredient of yagya, our consciousness, will be lacking. There will be some there, karma or jnana, or pratishta, puja, desire. Sex life may not manifest in a gross forms, but it can manifest in a subtle form of looking for recognition, worship, or trying to gain some profit, or collecting more than required, or endeavoring in some way. So we have to perform this Sankirtan Yagya, but not at the expense of our consciousness. And it's very, very significant point. Even we read about this fever of book distribution. And, once Prabhupada was asked, what is the most pleasing thing to you? It was asked by book distributors. And they were hoping they're going to say, book distribution. And then they were going to say, Jai Srila Prabhupada. But actually, Prabhupada said, when you love Krishna, it's the most pleasing thing to me. So you should not forget. And I was studying in Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani by Shivaram Swami. He was saying we have institutional goals of course, and it's coming as well through Guru Parampara that we have to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. But he says we should not forget our goal of becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. And it says this has to be in that sequence, the quality and the distribution of Krishna consciousness, boiling the milk of our own consciousness should not be done at the expense of distributing Krishna consciousness. They go hand in hand, and in that sequence, Shivaram Swami emphasizes, and is Srila Prabhupada's the same idea coming through Guru Parampara, because otherwise if you're distributing Krishna consciousness and we are not becoming pure devotee, we do it as an expense. It has to be as well as, but not at the expense of us becoming a pure devotee, because otherwise that is defeating the mission at the heart. We're distributing Krishna consciousness for the people to become pure devotees and enter Goloka Vrindavana, and we become so busy and neglecting our sadhana to the extent that how that goal it will be achieved, if we are the people who have embraced the Krishna consciousness and we are not developing a pure devotion, how this goal is going to be achieved. We're just planting the seeds and the fruit will never fructify. So Shivaram Swami was calling that mentality a lazy man's mentality, to be so busy in a mission to neglect one's hearing and chanting is actually a lazy man's philosophy, Shivaram Swami was saying in his Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani. That so-called business in the mission at the expense of one's sadhana is laziness. So it sounds very, very heavy, but actually is emphasizing, that it's not what Acharyas is teaching, is not what Srila Prabhupada is teaching, that he's emphasized so much study of his books, study of his literature, not at the expense of, our excuse that we are so busy distributing it that we have no time to read the books and we have no time to become absorbed in hearing and chanting. So this is not what Prabhupada is teaching and Acharyas are teaching. One of even the most successful projects in ISKCON that are very powerfully spreading Krishna consciousness, their foundational principle is very strong hearing and chanting. Otherwise, it's just not sustainable. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. We are so busy distributing. We are not developing our Krishna consciousness. So for how long is going to last? It's just not going to work. It's just not going to last. It's not sustainable. There is no foundation for the building. If we are building the building on that, then how the foundation? It is going to collapse individually and collectively. So now everyone is pushing GBC, Guru, Sadhu is pushing this movement. The future depends on how we're going to understand Srila Prabhupada's teachings, how deeply we're going to get into those teachings. If you really care about this movement and the future of this movement for the next 10,000 years, and you really care of how much this movement is going to have an effect for the people when that is going to save this world in its darkest hour, we have to be living the books. We have to be giving, quality time for our hearing and chanting. So are there any questions or comments on this? Response?
Thank you very much for that, Pastor. Actually, you answered most of your own questions there, including most of mine. Srila Prabhupada did send young devotees out on Sankirtan even when he knew that they weren't, you know, on the platform of Nishta, let's say, or on the platform of Ruchi.
Yes.
And he was very happy that they were using their intelligence to present the literature in a very expert way, even if that expert way, you know, was something unprecedented in Vaishnava history. So also, I mean, you're an example of a devotee who, even though you take study very seriously, but you're also like using marketing skills and computing knowledge to present Krishna consciousness in novel ways, or in ways which you perceive the general public to be able to assimilate. So, and therefore we're actually in an environment of competition with other philosophies. You know, just as the book distributors were in competition, you could say, with you know, the Bhogi yogis, or the born again Christians, or you know, or the you know, the communists, or you know, any organization which were putting energy into presenting their philosophy to the public. So to be able to do that effectively, you know, requires both humility, because if we haven't got humility, we won't be able to continue. But it also requires kind of like bravado and like taking risks, you could say. So in that environment, how do we protect young devotees from becoming like contaminated by the atmosphere of competition, which like prevails, that whole kind of marketing, you know, environment?
So how, just to clarify, how this competition kind of affects, you know, devotees, young devotees, and what way it affects us?
Yeah, well, I'll speak about myself as a young devotee, in the sense that I know that, you know, even though I've done service for many years, I've always struggled, you know, with very many lots of anarthas, and struggled with steadiness in my sadhana and my japa, and in my observing the rules and regulations of the temple. You know, but I've found that like a lot of my enthusiasm and that which has maintained me has, well, actually, I don't know what's maintained me, but through my perception, what's maintained me has been the opportunity to like think about ways in which Krishna consciousness can be spread. You know, and when we do that in the right mood, then I suppose we get the blessings of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and the acharyas, that we're taking that risk, you could say, and therefore we get the strength to be able to take those risks without our sadhana becoming, you know, watered down.
Yes.
But the risk is definitely there.
Yes.
You know, the risk is definitely there. But if we don't, but Srila Prabhupada did seem that he was happy when devotees took that risk. You know, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying perhaps we can, you know, perhaps we need to learn, perhaps we need to discuss this dynamic.
Yes.
You know, but I'm just asking it, how can you know, I'm not humble enough to call myself a young devotee, and I'm asking you to give me some protection. You know, how can I protect myself from that situation?
Yes.
I think by reading the Srila Prabhupada books, then we will find all the answers there. Because if we don't read, we can't have any shelter in any way, isn't it? Because the shelter comes from him, and then we can go to the rest of the acharyas. So when you read, you're gonna find exactly the right information, what you need to find out, and how you're going to protect yourself. If you don't read that, or you don't find time to read and chant, it's a very little chance, even if you get the mercy of few devotees, you really need to read the books. And by reading it, that's how I see it. If I need to find out something, it says exactly there the formula which you need to take to actually go closer and closer to Krishna, I think.
Thank you very much for that. Nice answer.
Jai. So stop here because we're out of time. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Jai.
Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
First, Raghunath Bhatta Jai.
So I think if it's all the answers are there, it's very strange that they come out when you read it.
I think it's just such a long time since I've done, that kind of preaching that I've forgotten